In my last album, I played the saxophone, and I'm not a good sax player at all, so this resulted in hundreds of takes spanning days. My lips were literally bleeding at some point, and I was kind of sick to my stomach for some reason. Translating notes in my head to sax keys is kind of like live coding an app somebody is describing to me in Mandarin. It really bugs me, and I think it's just because I didn't even try playing the sax until I was over 30 years old. My brain is wired for string instruments. When I complained about this to my friend Reimer, who's an amazing musician under the name of Kettle, by the way, he said that he uses a MIDI breath controller. For some reason, breath controllers always struck me as a cheap gimmick, but I fell down the rabbit hole, and I cannot emphasize how much of a game changer this is. Today, we're going to play around with the TEC USB MIDI Breath and Bite Controller 2, and we'll use it traditionally to add realistic expression to wind and brass sample libraries, and then, of course, we'll go right off the deep end. I should mention that the combination of the words MIDI breath made me laugh a lot. The device itself is kind of hilarious to me as well, as it not only has a breath and bite sensor, but you can also map out the nod and tilt positions. So to take full advantage of it, you end up looking like some kind of shitty, emotionally devoid Ray Charles impersonator. To be honest, so far I've not been a huge fan of the head tilting stuff. Maybe I'll warm up to it in the future, as it does work very well. But I'm the kind of person whose head is never more than 16 inches away from my screen when I'm working on a session. So the idea of adding like 4 new gestures to what my hands and foot are already doing is kind of hectic in my head. But this is definitely something you learn to play and get better at over time, so I'm not ruling these features out completely, and I'll probably use them in the future at some point. Just know that the nod and tilt tracking is very accurate and useful. Let's start out by using some instruments from a company called Sample Modeling. Some of them use Contact, and some of them use their own sampler called SWAM. The instruments do sound great, but I want to stay on track and keep the focus on the TEC device rather than everything else that we're using it with. So what you're seeing here is the TEC Control customization software, and as you can see, it's highly customizable. So my breath, it will be a red dot that appears here. Okay, then we got my bite. I actually made the bite. It wanted me to bite it kind of hard, a little too hard for me to get the max modulation, and I didn't feel like biting that hard, so I changed that. Then we have nod, which you know what that means. And you could change the maximum and minimums of these. So like tilt, I've bent it a bit, so I don't know, just to show you. And that way you don't have to nod your head 90 degrees up or down, or, you know, you could change it to whatever you're comfortable with, which is very helpful. So here we have the old SWAM engine, and this is sample modeling. So let's listen to this and let's hear how it sounds. Pretty awesome. Yeah, so I kind of thought that I would have this infinite toot of air, because no air comes out the other side. You just sort of blow, and it just sort of stays. But it does seep out, and you do need oxygen to stay conscious. So I guess I was just trying to see how long I could play giant steps before I died. Another thing I need to note is that this is not like a reed. You're not going, you're just blowing air pressure into it. So if you've never played a reed instrument before, you shouldn't have any problem with this. It is 5:30 p.m. in Georgia, which means that it's time to go for a hike. Do you want to go to the forest? I'm going to take a quick break. Hey, I'm back from the forest. I wish my orthodontist would take this headgear off. Hey, want to hear a clarinet? I found myself in a bit of a quandary. Is it like this? Or is it like... Whew. So here we are in Contact where I'm a little more comfortable, just more used to it. And here's a French horn. That's really, really useful and expressive. You're just not going to get that kind of expressive articulation with a mod wheel or something. You need a breath controller to get that sound, which is just incredible. I'm bummed that I didn't figure this out sooner. I think the only critical thing I have to say about this so far is when switching around these sessions, like I open a new session and open a soft synth and then, bound it to cutoff and noise and some other stuff. And when doing that, I've had to like close and reopen FL Studio and unplug and replug in the TEC control and find it again in the MIDI devices. And sometimes I've had to do it one or two times to get show up. Now, that also could be because I have such a wonky session going on. Like basically when I'm recording the screen, as I mentioned before in this and other videos, when I'm recording the screen, I have to go through a weird driver. So it could have something to do with that, but it also could just be a annoyance with the unit. So just, I guess that's my critique so far. But like I mentioned, I'm just sort of freestyling this and hooking it up to random expressions on a soft synth. So and we could end up with really expressive loops like this. Yeah, and it's loose and organic sounding. It's not like something that you would modulate with an LFO or, they could even really pull off that well with your mouse, or again, a mod wheel would be a little bit too slow. Now let's bring this out of the computer environment and use it with my modular. This isn't at all part of the intended functionality, but I just cannot resist. Luckily, I have an Axolotl Core, which is an absolutely incredible programmable DSP board made for the sole purpose of audio. I plan to do an episode on it in the future, but beyond its uses as a DIY effects processor and synthesizer, it also serves its purpose as the ultimate MIDI Swiss Army knife. Oh hey, it's officially my birthday. Cheers. I want you to bookmark this video. In case you ever have a friend stand you up on your birthday or something, you could always just come back here and see a recording artist you may listen to or have heard of working on Axolotl scripts to get a breath controller to work with a modular synthesizer on his birthday. This is so stupid. Let's hook it up to a quantizer. So my breath controller is going into a mult, a noise signal is going into a VCA, and my breath controller is attenuating that noise signal up, and that's going into a modal synthesizer, the elements. Also from that mult, or the breath controller, is it's controlling the strength of the modal synthesizer, and then it is also, every time I breathe in, the stronger I breathe in, the less the damping effect on the modal synthesizer gets, and we have... So while it's not a miracle tool, it does add some expression that you probably wouldn't be able to get otherwise. This is a way simpler patch. The chord is just going into a filter out into clouds, and the breath controller is actually controlling the filter frequency without any envelopes or anything connected. So we have... As a professional television and game music composer, for me, the TEC breath controller is a no-brainer for its intended purpose in making brass and wind sample libraries sound more realistic. But I'm really digging it as a way to humanize expression in general. To be able to play a synth pad and just breathe modulation into it, it's something that I wish I knew about years ago. So something that I intended on having for a specific use is now something that will rarely not be sitting here plugged into my desk. And hey, if you learned anything from this video, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments if there's anything you want me to cover in the future. Bye.